So good morning, everyone, and welcome to another week of our departmental seminars. First, I'd like to apologize for Dr. Gallimore, who was unable to make it today due to an unforeseen challenge, and I was asked to fill in her stead. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing Dr. Suazette Mooring. So I'll just introduce her before she begins her presentation. Dr. Suazette Mooring is a native of Trinidad and Tobago that came to the United States to pursue a bachelor's degree in chemistry at Morgan State University in Baltimore, Maryland. Dr. Mooring then furthered her studies by earning a master's degree in chemistry from Georgia State Institute of Technology. Sorry, technical difficulties. Yeah, right. So she then furthered her education by pursuing a master's degree in chemistry from Georgia Institute of Technology and a PhD in medicinal chemistry from Georgia State University. But her love for science and education drove her to pursue a postdoctorate fellowship with the NIH Fellowship in Research and Science Teaching program at Emory University School of Medicine. With all these qualifications under her belt, Dr. Mooring then became an assistant professor in 2012 at the Georgia State University. Her research zones in on the synthesis of small molecules that modulate the chemokine receptor type 4 pathway implicated in cancer, metastasis, and inflammatory conditions. Her contributions are not limited to research, as Dr. Mooring has established an NSF, Natural Science Foundation, research program in chemistry education where she investigates cognitive and affective factors that impacts teaching and learning of chemistry. It comes as no surprise that Dr. Mooring has been promoted on numerous occasions where now she serves as an associate professor and director of graduate studies in the Department of Chemistry at Georgia State University. She's a teacher, a scholar, and a mentor committed to diversity in chemistry, chemical sciences, and STEM. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me in welcoming Dr. Mooring as she does her presentation. Dr. Mooring, take it away.
Hey, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Marcel, for your wonderful introduction. I also want to thank Dr. Winklet Gallimore for making the connection and allowing me to come and talk about the graduate programs here. Dr. Keith Pascoe is also in the Zoom room. He is a lecturer at Georgia State University and an alum of UW Mona. And so he also helped me make this connection. So thank you to him as well and to your department for allowing me to speak today. I think this is I'm really excited to be here. I'm very happy to share about our program because I think this is a long overdue connection and really a two-way street, because as I offer, what we have in terms of opportunity for students to pursue graduate education at Georgia State, I also think it's an opportunity for us in our program to really get quality students that I know is at UW Mona. So I'm really happy to have this opportunity to do this. I would say that Georgia State University is a very large urban campus. We are located in downtown Atlanta. As you can see some of the downtown Atlanta pictures there, right in the central heart of downtown Atlanta. We are very large. Like I said, we have about 52,000 students across the downtown Atlanta campus. We have around 30,000 students, and in we have some other campuses which are two-year institutions. It has about 5 campuses that has the other 20,000 students. Of those students come from maybe over 120 different nations, and we have over 3,000 international students. As you can see, we are the largest research university in Georgia and almost one of the largest universities in that southeast of the United States. We rated as number 2 in innovation in the United States, number 2 in undergraduate teaching in the United States, and recently as one of the largest growing research universities in the United States. We've grown 150% in our research expenditures, meaning that we're obtaining a large amount of funding in a short space of time. And so we keep growing. And we also rated as number 1 highest ranked public institution that does not have a medical school or engineering school or agricultural school. So we are making strides in research and in the academic realm. So why GSU chemistry? Why would you want to come here? Our institution tends to focus a lot, our department tends to focus a lot on biological and basis of disease. So we do study in all different aspects of chemistry: disease, safety, design, drug design, and that's the fundamentals of biomedical structure and interaction. We have outstanding faculty who are known for their expertise in the field, who are consistently receiving external grant funds, publications, and even journals like Science and Nature. Our department is on the smaller side compared to some other departments. We do have 40 faculty. Of those, around half of those, about 22 of those, are research faculty. And even though we are small, we are at the top or even near the top in terms of getting external grant support and publications. As of now, we are over $8 million each year in external grant funding. And so just to talk a little bit about, if you were to come to Georgia State, if you want to come into our program, you don't have to have a master's degree first. You could come straight from your bachelor's degree, or you could have a master's degree. And all of our admitted students get a full tuition waiver, meaning that you do not pay tuition at all. You do have to pay fees and maybe take care of health insurance. And then all our students get a stipend of $30,000 US per year. We have, again, I said, expert faculty, top rated facilities. Here on the right, you see a picture of one of our research buildings, which is called the Petite Science Center, that has all the state-of-the-art equipment. And we have around now, maybe it says 180 here, but maybe we have now around 120 graduate students, both PhD and master's students. The research concentrations that we have, again, most of our even is analytical. We may even have bioanalytical because of the bio focus of our department, biochemistry, chemical biology, organic and medicinal chemistry. We also have biophysical chemistry and computational chemistry, and of course, chemistry education. So all of these are areas in which you can focus on. In addition to our department is associated with a number of centers that we have around campus. So we have the Center for Inflammation, Immunity, and Infection. And that center focuses on better understanding of the molecular basis of inflammatory diseases and developing therapeutics for that. Within the Neuroscience Institute, they have a Brains and Behavior Fellowship program. And all of these centers that I'm talking about here are also opportunities to get funding. All of these centers provide fellowships to students, graduate students as well. So there's a Brains and Behavior Fellowships for graduate students who are working on areas of chemistry related to neuroscience. Molecular basis of disease is another program that involves 6 different departments across campus: biology, chemistry, computer science, physics, astronomy, math, and statistics. Also offers fellowships to graduate students in our department. And finally, the Center for Diagnostics and Therapeutics. This particular center looks at translational research. So it's looking to get biomarker guided therapies, imaging, contrast agents, those kind of things that are useful for diagnostic and therapeutics in disease. So when it comes to, being admitted to our program, there's a few requirements. First is transcripts from any institutions that you've attended, like bachelor's or above institutions. You'll require 3 letters of recommendation hopefully from professors and lecturers and people who you've done research with. You'll have to provide a statement of purpose. And this statement, it talks about your career goals and your career trajectory, why you're interested in this. And during that statement of purpose, we also ask you to identify 3 faculty that you think you want to work with that matches your interest in research. We do, after your application is reviewed by our graduate committee, and if you're recommended for admission, these files can be sent to those faculty of interest, and they may even have an additional conversation with you via Zoom or Skype or something like that, and you can decide together if you'd be a good fit. And even if you're not, and you are accepted, you can still come into the program even though you don't have a targeted person to join, because then you can do that rotation in the first semester and find a group that way. You also would have to submit a resume or CV, and then GRE scores, which are strongly recommended. And the deadline is June 1st if it's for a fall admission. So fall usually starts at the beginning of August, but you can submit an application even earlier than that. We do start reviewing applications even now for the fall admission. So it's rolling admission. So if you submit it early and the committee reviews your application, you can get accepted much earlier. And I do recommend, for international students to start this application process even earlier now, because there's a lot of barriers to length of time taking to get your student visa and things like that. So let me talk a little bit about the program itself and what would be the requirements once you come into the program. So for coursework is 80 credit hours. That sounds like a lot, but I'll show you how this breaks down. So core courses, those will be the courses that belong to the discipline that you choose. So if you choose biochemistry or computational, you will take those core courses. Now those 9 hours represent around 3 courses, because each course is about 3 hours. So you will take those 3 courses in that core discipline, and then you can take electives. Those electives could be just discussion with your research advisor or based on your research interests. These courses can be from biology, they can be other chemistry courses and other concentrations, they can be in computer science. It really depends on what your needs are and what your research needs are. There's some other electives, seminar, like we have a weekly research seminar in which we have researchers from external to our institution who come every Friday to talk about their research, and that is mandatory for our new students in the first 2 semesters. And then the research hours. Research hours are 40 hours. This is something that people usually have way more than they need, because you're registering for research every single semester for sometimes 6 or above credits in research. The other requirement, it will be a research skill or a foreign language. Most students go with the research skill. The foreign language requirement is something that I think is historically, chemistry used to be, probably German used to be the language of chemistry, but that's no longer the case. So most students go for the research skill, which could be NMR, mass spec, molecular modeling, all of those things. For some students, it could be biostatistics. Those things will fulfill research skill. And if your students are entering with certain approved MS degrees, those students will have fulfilled that requirement and they won't have to do that. And the other one is for students who are international, who English is not their major language, then that would not apply to you. And the third is your general or candidacy exam, or what we call sometimes the qualifying exams. Students usually take this in their second year. It has a written component within your discipline or your core area, and then there will be an oral exam with a committee where you discuss your research, and they will ask you questions about certain aspects and concepts within that research area. And once you pass that exam, you will now be a candidate for PhD or doctoral degree candidate. And at that point, you're just working towards your dissertation or in your publications, and also your defense, your oral defense before your defense committee. Some other requirements that we have, in the beginning especially, all of our students are required to be teaching assistants. So you will have a teaching assistant training course in that first semester. And we also require a course in responsible conduct of research, which is research ethics. That's required because of our federal bodies require that students have this. And residency, which is easy to fulfill, is that you have to be on campus full-time for at least 6 terms. And that's usually not an issue because you're here doing research. So just a kind of an overview of what your program will look like. Fall admission, into the program, you'll do your research rotation or your lab assignment, and then you will complete your teaching requirement as well. That will be that first year 1. In year 2, you'll continue doing your coursework, and you will do your research skill language requirement, and then you will continue doing your research hours, and then you will take the general exam or the qualifying exam somewhere around June of the year 2. Once you're finished with this and you pass your qualifying exam in year 3, you will submit your dissertation proposal, and you would be admitted to candidacy or nominated for candidacy. And then you will assign a dissertation committee, or those people who will be members of your dissertation committee for the rest of your time. In year 4 and 5, you continue with your research, and if there's another year, but most students in our program complete it within 5 years. That's been our average for a long time. And most of the time you may hold an annual meeting with your committee before your final defense date. So I want to give you a few examples of the types of research that we have going on in our department. Like I said, we are very bio-focused. So, at the core, we have organic synthesis, medicinal chemistry, molecular modeling, molecular recognition. And, you can see some ideas of the types of research that we have going on, carbohydrate biomarkers, fluorescence sensing and detection. We have projects around drug delivery, synthesis of inhibitors such as HIF1 and SEC-A inhibitors, click chemistry. So you see a lot of different kinds of research that we have going on. Some people are involved in DNA disruption studies and things like that, imaging. So this is just a few examples. Here is the Gada Lab. Dr. Gada is our current interim chair of our department, and he is our resident enzymologist. His area of study is enzymatic mechanisms of enzymes such as the flavin-dependent alcohol reductase. So this is one type of research that you can do in the biochemistry area. This is the Gosam Lab. So Mayor Gosam is in the biophysical computational chemistry division. He is the associate graduate director. So if you apply to our program, he takes charge of a lot of the admissions. So you probably hear from him a lot if you do apply for our program. And his group is focused on photobiology and photochemical, and it's all computational programming and things like that. This is for the lab of Dr. Maggot Henry. He does a lot of near infrared synthesis of near infrared fluorescent probes. And you can see some of his really cool pictures here where these probes, these infrared probes that he is synthesizing in his lab can then be used to target certain organs or certain tissue and cartilage in the body. And you can see it lighting up here in the pancreas, the thyroid, the lymph nodes, and it allows surgeons now to better see where those things are and target better when they're doing surgical resection of those areas. So very cool. This is Professor Bing Wang. He is a Regents Professor, also recently admitted into the National Academy of Inventors Fellow. One of his current projects looks at development of organic carbon monoxide prodrugs. You know, we think of carbon monoxide as being poisonous, but he has found a way to use it in very small amounts in a therapeutic way using click chemistry. So another interesting and cool project there. This is Dr. Gangley Wang. He's in the Bioanalytical Division, and his group works on nanoelectron chemistry, biosensors, energy conversion, a lot of nanomolecules type research here, and optical properties and its applications. And this is an example from Dr. Yang's group. Her focus is primarily looking at developing computational and biomedical approaches to identifying calcium binding proteins. A lot of her work is around calcium binding proteins. And they're also now doing really great work on creating MRI contrast agents to diagnose disease. Let's see. Oh, and this is me. Look at that. So my lab primarily focuses now on chemistry education research. So students can get their PhDs in chemistry education research in our department. They do focus still on a discipline. So most of my students still choose a concentration in which they complete their oral and written exams, but their dissertation project has to do with some type of question around teaching and learning of chemistry. We do utilize both quantitative or statistical methods and also qualitative methods to answer some of those questions about teaching and learning of chemistry. In the past, I've had PhD students in, like Marcel said earlier, designing small molecules for inflammation and cancer metastasis around a chemokine called CXCR4 receptor that's implicated in those kinds of conditions. So with that, I just want to show a summary of kind of what I spoke about our program and the different areas that we have: analytical and biochemistry, organic, computational and chemical education. There's also a PhD program related to our discipline in geochemistry and nutrition as well, but those are more handled in that those departments. And I have some of this information that I have sent to Dr. Gallimore to share with you with these same QR codes, and you're welcome to, snap those QR codes as well and find out more about our department and how to apply to the department as well. And this is my contact information. I also have the contact information for our Associate Director of Graduate Studies, Dr. Gosam. And of course, you can follow us on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter if you use Twitter like that. But at this point, I hope many of you have questions, and any question you have about the program, the admission process, being in the program, I will be very happy to answer any of those questions. And feel free to put your questions in the chat or say them out loud. We have, 2 alum from Mona that also received their PhDs in at Georgia State, and I did ask them to come in if they had the opportunity, but I don't see them in here. Oh yeah, I see Garfield. Hi, Garfield. So Garfield Beckford is in here. His wife, Shirley Beckford, also attended Mona, and they both got their PhDs. So I don't know if Garfield, you want to say a quick hi? I don't know if you're available.
Hello, Dr. Morin. Hello, everyone. Hi, my name is Garrett Beckford, and I am a alumni of both UWI and Georgia State. In fact, I graduated from UWI in 2002. I did some work with Dr. Greenaway back then. So some of you might have remembered Dr. Greenaway. Yeah. And my wife, Charlene, I think she's here too. She's in the Zoom. She graduated around the same time. She worked with Prof. Jacobs. So most of you might know Prof. Jacobs still. Yeah. So we are here. Hi, hello. Thanks for having us.
I just wanted them to pop in, and if they had, had questions too, or when you ask questions, that maybe they have something to say about it. But I just wanted to see these alum who's doing really well after their graduation from Georgia State. Hi, Shirley.
Hi. Hi, Suazette. Hi, everybody. Really happy to be here. I see a lot of folks that I know. I see their name on the list. Glad I could join. Didn't think that I could make it. But yes, alum of both UWI Mona and Georgia State. I graduated, I think, oh my God, it's been a while, 2007, with a master's degree from Professor Jacobs' lab. And I see Anka Brown on the line. We were in grad school at UWI together, but then transitioned to Georgia State, and I graduated Georgia State with a PhD in, I want to say, biophysical and organic chemistry. And that was 2012. And now I'm working in the intellectual property field, but feel free if you have any questions. And I'll also post my contact information in the chat as well if you have any questions about the graduate school experience. My husband and I, as Garfield said, we came up in 2007, both students at Georgia State University, came up together, went through the whole graduate school experience. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask or to reach out after the Zoom call.
Yeah, I think we were there around the same time as PhD students. I finished in 2010, and I think you finished in 2012, right?
2012, right.
Mm-hmm. Great. Any questions from students? And again, feel free to put it in the chat, say it out loud, welcome it.
Okay. All right, since I don't see any hands up, I think I'll go first. So I got a few questions for grads who are watching. So you made mention of the stipend being 30,000 a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
How much does it cost for living accommodations within the university itself? If you're living on hall, let's start there. How much that would cost?
Most of our students do not live on campus. Most of the students that live on campus are undergrads. I mean, you can, but most of students find apartments outside of campus. They find roommates. I haven't had an apartment in a long time. So if I should say, okay, what is the general cost? Anyway, I know surely anyone had the general cost for an apartment in Atlanta, but most students have roommates. Also,
Dr. Morin,
yes,
this is Garfield here. I could maybe say a few things on that. So when Charlene and I came here, what we did was that because the train literally has a station, Georgia State has a train station. So the subway stops at Georgia State, inside Georgia State. So we found an apartment that is not too far from the train station. Mm-hmm. So find an apartment, reasonable price, along the train route, and you should be okay. So it's because the train stops literally at Georgia State.
Any university offers a discount for the MARTA card, which is the card you use to be on the train. But most students either take the train in, and it's really convenient because, like you said, it's a stop right. It's called the Georgia State Station. So, so if you stay within that that part, it won't be too bad.
Yes, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I see a statement from Dr. Brown. I suppose students want to know how well the stipend covers the cost of living. Yes, that would be the next question I would ask. Like, how well does the stipend really covers that cost? Is it?
It's at the minimum because you know, like I said, you have to be conservative, and I think it's much better than it used to be. And we recently raised it to this $30,000, and like I said, most students have you know, some type of roommate, or you know, and it does cover the basics. Yeah, it does cover the basics.
So if it is that it's the students find themselves in a situation where it doesn't cover the basics, do you guys have certain opportunities that help further them, or could fund them, or seek further employment from the university to help offset?
There's additional fellowships, but for the most part, the stipend is sufficient. I don't have most students say, you know, now that we raise it, I think they're really happy. They, you know, with where they are, but and it comes with a price, because the 30,000 means that you also TA, right? So you are responsible for being a teaching assistant in one of our courses. You either will be, you know, assisting the professor in the course, in a lab course or a lecture course, in terms of you just helping the students, or you can be what we call instructor of record, where you are the instructor for the lab.
Okay, and before that was not required, you just receive a stipend.
Oh, no, it was always required. Just now it's a little bit more teaching. It used to be just one, but now you're doing maybe 2 to 3.
So, all right, so that's another question then, as you said that. So how much hours out of the week would that requirement take out from the research?
It depends on the course. So it wouldn't take that much out of your research, because let's say you have the same course and you're doing TA for a lab. The lab may last 4 hours. So usually our labs are about 4 hours long. So you might be doing 2 of those per week.
Okay, and do they mark as well as if they're on the lab? Are they marking lab scripts? Are they marking the labs that they're TAing for?
Sometimes. Mostly you're there to supervise the students, to give them guidance as they're doing their work in the lab. And they may have a quiz, and the labs are not very large. So you might have about 40 students in a lab. So if you have to mark, it's just maybe a quiz or something. And it varies by instructor. I'm an instructor. I may ask my TAs to look at students' lab notebooks to see how, make sure that they're doing what they need to do. They might do a quiz. I grade my own lab report. Some people may ask you to grade certain portions of their lab report. It depends, but we try to keep it within, especially since you have 2 to 3 appointments, we try to make sure that you're staying within the hours so that you have time for your classes, you have time for your research, and you're doing the TA as well, right? So you can do all 3 of it, managing your time very well. In that first couple of years, you really need to be, on it in terms of your time management, to make sure that you're doing all these things efficiently. Because the first year, you're in classes, so the advisors doesn't expect that much of you for your research in that first year, because they know that you're taking your classes and then you have the TA, right? And if later on your advisor puts you on one of those fellowships, like I talked about earlier, the molecular basis of disease, or the CDT fellowship, any one of those fellowships, then your teaching load will go down. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right. And I'll just echo what Suazette is saying, just in the opposite direction. So it's the TA in a lab is a similar setup as at UA. I remember when I was at UN, it's a while now, but I had to TA 2 labs per week, 2 3-hour labs, if I'm recalling correctly, per week. And it's a really similar setup to UA, where you attend the lab, answering the questions from students. And as Suazette says, sometimes you have to grade a lab, and some instructors do not require you to grade a lab. So again, it's very manageable, once you have your priorities straightened out. And back to the cost of living as well. When I started in 2007, the stipend at the time was $15,000, and and I was at an advantage because Garfield was my husband and he came up with me. But most students are not married; they come up and married from foreign countries, and they did survive on $15,000 per year in 2007. I think in my 3rd year I was put on the molecular basis of disease fellowship, and my stipend rose to $18,000. And I survived on that through to the end of the 5-year period. So $30,000 is I think is a really good and reasonable budget for a student to live on. Of course, you know, we'll have to remember that, you know, you're a student and you know, you're not gonna live any outlandish lifestyle or anything like that. It's a reasonable, I would say, student budget. And so that maybe you'd know more. It compares a lot to the other graduate programs across the US.
And that's one of the reasons why we had at that level now, because we compared, you know, teaching requirements and stipends across other institutions nearby in the Southeast. And now we are, you know, on par with what other institutions in the Southeast is giving their students in terms of stipend.
Okay, thank you. I have a quick question from Professor Lancashire. You mentioned typical time frame is 5 years for entry. Is it possible to complete earlier given the timing of courses?
It's possible. I mean, I've had students who finish within 4 years, and then some students who finish earlier than that is because they came in with a master's degree, maybe from a US institution where they were able to transfer some of those coursework from their master's degree into, so they didn't have to take so they can just jump into their research because they don't have to take as many courses up front. Okay. But it's possible.
So if, let's say, a hypothetical,
not typical, I should say.
If somebody was transferring from, let's say, the UWI, somebody says, all right, they've done their MPhils like Dr. Beckford had done, and so they want to now do research at your university. Could you transfer the research credits that they have received here to that university, or is that not so? Yeah.
It's possible, but I guess something that we have to look at the course. We have to look at, you know, what the requirements were and compare. Is it a course that's comparable to something that we have that we could say, yes, okay, you know, and it's really up to me at this point, as you know, as graduate director, to look at the course, to look at the curriculum, the syllabus, and then look at what we have and say, is there a course that's comparable to this at our institution? And so talking to the College of Arts and Sciences, who our department is under, to see if this is something that we can do. But it really depends on what the course is and is it comparable to what we do.
Okay, I see Dr. Gallimore has joined the chat. She says, thank you so much for performing. Is a GRE requirement for admission, or can it be done after the students enter the program? And I would also add to that question, is it that the GRE is for the subject itself or the general GRE?
We don't require the subject GRE. At this point in the GRE is still a requirement, but I'm almost saying now that it's strongly recommended. Maybe I don't know if I should or shouldn't say this, but I'm at the point where I am pursuing really downplaying the GRE to the point where it's optional or it's not required at all. But at this point, it's a change that takes a while to make. But you take the GRE, but I do say that we don't just look at the GRE. It's a whole package, right? Your recommendation letters, your experience in research, if you had research before, all of the whole thing, it looks holistically, and the GRE doesn't play a major role in the final decision, because we know from all the research out there that the GRE is not at all give any indication of how well a student will do in graduate school. It has no correlation.
Okay.
And I'll add to that is just, you always want to look good on paper. So while, it's being downplayed a lot in the US now, but, if you want to stand out from another candidate, two persons with same qualifications, one did the GRE and one didn't, then, psychologically, you're going to go for the person that did the GRE. So it's all a matter of presentation, how you present yourself to the board.
Yeah, so like I said, we do holistically, and the GRE is one of those things that, it's on there, but, it's not it's not a deal breaker, right? Your whole package would be important.
Okay, all right. Let me see if there's any, I see a hand is up. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for this presentation. I have a question for the Beckfords. Like, what was the thought process behind you applying to GSU to do your PhD program? You know, what kind of decision making did you guys engage in?
Okay, at least for me, maybe different for Charlene. I look at the program that it offers, and first and foremost, well, the first thing that it was close to home. Atlanta is not too far from Kingston, so I thought it was close to home. And then, more importantly, we look at the different offerings that university offers, and I wanted to stay in analytical chemistry. So I look at the different professors and see what they offered, and most of them offered something that I was interested in. So I pretty much applied to all three that at the time were doing the stuff that I like. And so from there, it pretty much was a no-brainer just to continue in that direction. So I think what Dr. Morin says first, looking at the profile of three professors that you think you might be interested in it's very good. Not to say that even if you don't get a professor to sign up with on your way in doesn't mean the end of the road. While you're there, doing that rotation is also advantageous because it gives you a different perspective on different professors to see what they do.
All right, and for me, it was something similar. I think when I initially had started to look, I was working. I graduated from Professor Jacobs' lab at UE and was working at Tanod International. I know they're no longer open, but I think that working there, they were doing R&D, and working there sort of opened my eyes into the more medicinal chemistry world. And so, you know, being having a master's degree, I thought that, you know, I wanted to learn more about this field. I liked the field I was in, wanted to learn more about it. And Georgia State had presented itself as, you know, having a balance between not just core chemistry, but a mix of chemistry and biology. So that was very attractive to me. And you know, I want to recognize Dr. Pascoe, who's also on the line. He was very instrumental in, you know, assisting me through that process. Well, both Garfield and myself in that process in getting through at Georgia State. But the initial seed for me was working at Tanod International, getting exposed to R&D, seeing the bridge between chemistry and biology, and just wanting to continue along that path.
And that makes sense because, like I said, our program, our niche is biomedical, related research in all the concentrations. And so, you know, if that is your leaning, then, you know, Georgia State is a great place for that. And it sets us apart from, like, say, a Georgia Tech, for instance, which is more like materials and polymer chemistry and things like that.
Dr. Morin, there's one thing that you did not mention that I took advantage of while I was at Georgia State. Even within the department, having a stipend, also there are other opportunities based on the research that you do. There are other fellowships that can also coexist with your stipend and increase the amount of funding you have, both for your research and for the money you get take home in your pocket. For example, while I was there studying, I had a Solvay pharmaceutical fellowship. So I was funded by that. And because of that, I started, I think after my second or third year, I started getting more than the normal stipend. So I get a little extra, which was very, very useful. So while you're there, depending on the research you do, there can be other financial gains, both personally and for your research.
Yeah, that's one I've never heard of, this Solvay, because a lot of the other fellowships are, you know, it's for U.S. citizens or permanent residents, you know, a lot of those additional fellowships, but that's one I didn't know about.
Now, on your way in, it will say they're for U.S. citizens and residents, but when you get in, if you really go above and beyond and apply and prove yourself, I'm almost certain you will be rewarded.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other question. I see something in the chat.
You're seeing, thanks.
Okay, thanks. All right, I see Dr. Singh Wilmot. So Dr. Singh Wilmot, ask your question. Go ahead, Dr. Singh.
Hi, good morning, colleagues. Thanks again to everyone for joining us. Listen, I'm asking this, and I know, Prof. Mooring, your office is graduate studies, but I'm gonna ask for those students who are finishing up their PhDs here, just because you guys are in the system, can you tell us where they must look? Tell them where they must look for the postdoc positions. You know,
Wow,
what is the postdoc scene like there at Georgia State, and where do they advertise?
So I would say that because our faculty is well funded, there are postdoctoral positions available, because most of the time when they apply for their NIH grants and NSF grant, there is some funding putting in there for postdocs. So if you go on either the faculty, their personal pages itself, or you would go on the HR link under the chemistry, you would see maybe some postdoc, but you can just reach out to a particular professor that you have interested and ask, here's my CV, here is my research experience. Do you have a postdoctoral position available now? And then maybe set up a meeting with that particular professor, because sometimes, they may have something, but you may have to talk to them so they can see that, you are a good fit for their lab. But there's several, postdoc positions that will come up in almost all of the labs at some point in time, and in our department. So yeah, it's available.
Okay. Okay. So I have a few more questions building on that. So students are wondering, like, how the instrumentation situation over is like. Are you guys instrumented like
everything you can think of? We have
everything you can think of. Awesome. And
400, 800 NMR, 800 NMR, mass
That
spec,
question is funny.
various types.
That question is funny.
State of the art.
Basis so they are aware, right?
And we just got this new instrument grant from the NIH that allowed us to get one of those MRI, because some of our colleagues are studying MRI contrasting agent. I showed you Dr. Jenny Yang just received a huge grant to fund that area of translational and imaging equipment. So,
okay, yeah. and I know students are actually interested in learning how to operate these instruments. We facilitate instrument training. Okay. And
yes, there's a core facility training is called, and they usually schedule those, especially when new students come in. So they'll have some of those core facility. The NMR has its own training module that the NMR director will do. When it comes to mass spec students don't typically do their own mass specs. We have a mass spec analysis center, and we submit the samples, and those scientists there, they would do that. Although some labs have their own HPLC and their own LCMS, where the students do have to learn. Now, if Garfield could tell you well enough what it's like working in an analytical lab where you are the tech and the student and the right, and you have to know how to fix some of these things like over time. So you don't have to call a tech every time something breaks down. You'll have to learn how to do some of this yourself.
That is true. One thing you need to make mention of to Dr. Mooring, whereas at UE, sometimes we have to use core facilities lab, even though at Georgia State, there's core facilities instrumentation. Each lab might even have their own, for example, some lab might even have their own NMR, have their own other equipment and instrument, but there is still the core facility in the event that your lab don't happen to have their own NMR.
Yeah, it depends. It depends on the lab and the kind of funding that they have and the kind of research that they do. So they would have certain types of instrumentation.
Yeah,
I'm glad to hear that, because I know students are very concerned about that core instrumentation, which is very important, necessary, I even say crucial when you move into the working sphere, that you say you have the competencies in these type of instrumentation.
Absolutely.
And hearing that, I was asking, well, I have a question from our HOD, Dr. Minor Kate. Is the department open to collaborating with local researchers and research students? And I agree with this question. Is the university and your department open to some form of collaborations where we could kind of pull resources together and make something great?
Tell me what kind of you mean collaboration among faculty or?
faculty or research students, or is it possible like we could do like research student is working on a project, we could collaborate somebody over there, a professor
And yeah,
over
that
there?
would be a individual, faculty to faculty conversation. So let's say, and I know just recently some of the faculty were telling me about there's a conference is it natural product or medicinal chemistry at Mona that they've attended, and they were looking forward to attending, but this year but canceled because of COVID. So those faculty that go there, when they have conversations with faculty at Mona, they can form those collaborations. So they have somebody's putting it in there, the Mona Symposium. That's the one that a lot of them was talking about just yesterday that they were missing out on going to. So those are opportunities for faculty there to talk to faculty at Georgia State about possible collaboration, similar areas of interest. Having students exchange programs is another level of I guess administrative and red tape, but it's possible we have other exchange programs with other institutions around the world. So it just takes some time to work those things up, right?
You're saying it's possible for one of our students here, a grad student, let's say a PhD in organic chemistry, to come up there and do some research.
Anything is possible because that happens. We have students from China who used to, come over, and because they have some kind of exchange program going on. But those programs have to be built, and it has to go through the proper, channels within the university to form those what we call a MOU, or the agreement, that you would have between those institutions to make that happen.
Okay, I think we should definitely speak more on that offline. But I want to see if I see any questions. Jermaine, is that a new hand or old hand?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Marcel,
go ahead.
Just a quick question. What typically happens to kind of a bit older equipment in the lab? Seeing that sometimes you get new, more modern equipment. What typically happens to the older equipment? And maybe repurposed?
I am not quite sure, but I know sometimes if it's workable, they may donate that equipment to other institutions nearby, maybe undergraduate institutions that may not have, may not have as much access to instrumentation. But that's a good question. I never thought about, what, I don't know exactly what they do with them or what the university requires. But I'm suspect that maybe in some cases they could donate it to other institutions. But I'm not sure of the answer 100%.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So anyone, just feel free to reach out to me. I did send that information to Dr. Gallimore so she can share with you that e-flyer that has the same QR codes, and it has contact information on it. And I'm going to put my email address in the chat one more time. If anyone wants to just reach out and take a look at our department website, look at our faculty, because I'm really excited to see some applications coming in from some of you all, hopefully in the next year or two.
Okay, are there any other questions? There any burning questions? Jermaine is okay, that's an old hand. All right, so I'm not seeing any other questions. So with that being said, I would like to thank Dr. Mooring, Dr. Beckford, and I'm sorry, I don't remember the other person.
Dr. Pasco.
Right, who spoke?
Yes.
Time out to come and speaking with us and sharing with us your experiences. Again, it was greatly appreciated. And we're looking forward to some collaboration between the universities, in the different ways that you spoke about student exchange and the other initiatives that is possible. All right.
I'll start looking into that more too to see what is required, because I know there is some, university, like you said, administrative red tape things that you will have to do to facilitate that kind of exchange programs.
Okay. So I would like to thank you again for your time, and guys, today that will be the end of our seminars for today. I wish you guys a safe week, and we'll see you back again next week for more. So stay tuned.
Okay, thank you, Marcel. Thank you, everyone. I'm so glad it was such a nice full room. That's great.
Okay, all right. Enjoy your day, guys. Be safe.
Thanks.
Thank you.